Why did Twilight become an unexpected cult classic? Is it a cult classic? By definition, a cult classic typically refers to movies that are marginal disasters upon first release, usually in the horror sci-fi genre, and that attract an unexpectedly devoted audience. But don't get me wrong, Twilight was a blockbuster, raking in $69 million on the opening weekend and over $400 million worldwide. So why does it have the trajectory of a cult classic? Hi, my name's Courtney, you can call me Courts. Today I'm yapping about how Catherine Hardwicke had an influence in Twilight becoming a cult classic. Sorry, internet meme and sensational cult classic. And if you don't know who Catherine Hardwicke is, well, she directed the first Twilight. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Roll the sound. So who is Catherine Hardwicke and why should you care? Well, she's a director, a creative professional who oversees the artistic aspects of film production. Her projects outside of Twilight include 13, Lords of Dogtown, and The Nativity Story. So coming off Lords of Dogtown, Twilight sort of fell into Catherine's lap. She describes receiving scripts from the indie production company Summit Entertainment, which at the time was considered a smaller production company. They happened to have a wacky first draft of what would become Twilight.
So I went into the meeting at Summit and I said, the script should be thrown away. It's terrible. They had Bella, the CIA, were tracking vampires. She was on a jet ski.
Without Catherine Hardwicke backing Twilight, we would not have series like The Hunger Games, we would not have Divergent, and we most certainly would not have 50 Shades of Grey, which we all know is based on Twilight fan fiction. Twilight was unavoidably popular upon its first release. Like, I remember standing in line at the cinema on opening night trying to get a good seat because this was before you could pre-book tickets. The craze for this book series was like unheard of, but it was completely stimulated by its online presence. Twilight ruled Tumblr feeds everywhere, especially as promo for the movie started to come out. 12 years after the first movie came out, though, a global pandemic and the rise of TikTok breathed new life into the franchise entirely. And those who once felt shame about the fandom could reclaim the movies. Although each film has their fair share of references.
Bella! Where the hell have you been, Loca?
Twilight, the first, is by far the most referenced and memed online.
This is the skin of a killer, Bella.
I want to talk about why I think Twilight has such an indie feel, and I think part of that is similar to the likes of The Room, how a movie beloved by many, but it maintains a consistent reputation of being a bad movie. Twilight only had a budget of $37 million, whereas the final installment had a budget of $120 million.
Kind of like making an indie movie more. It wasn't a big budget. There wasn't a high expectation. They did not think it was going to make a lot of money.
Catherine Hardwicke also said she was forced to cut $4 million out of the budget a few days before production began. And that's a huge amount of money when you consider that most indie films today are made for a budget of $1 to $2 million. Twilight was not projected to be a huge hit at all, which fortunately left a lot of room for creative control by Catherine Hardwicke. You know, it had a small budget when they finished filming the entire movie in just 48 days. That's under 3 months. That's insane. That's indie. That's crazy. She said to Vanity Fair, "Nobody knew what it was going to be. I didn't have committees giving me notes. I wasn't watched by big-time producers. I didn't have the pressure of hitting blockbuster marks." She says that Stephenie Meyer captured the essence of teen love in the books, which captured her interest as a director. Which, if we reflect on her debut film 13, we can see that she leans into this tactic quite a bit to express feelings of angst and evoke a bit of nostalgia. It kind of feels like 90s grunge. Whenever you slap a filter on anything, it just feels 90s. I don't know. I don't make the rules. That iconic blue tint is exactly what you think of when you think of Twilight, besides all the memes, which is why it could also have had such a powerful resurgence in recent years, since none of the other films maintain this aesthetic. It's also the reason that it feels low budget. I don't know, financially it was. Catherine ultimately chose not to move forward with the rest of the franchise as she felt rushed by the studio. She's spoken about her gripes with Hollywood before, particularly surrounding the sexism within the industry, being told early on that Twilight would make the same amount of money as The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which was another successful and popular teen girls book adaptation that made $29 million at the box office. Essentially, Twilight was turned away by bigger production companies like Paramount and Fox because they didn't believe that a book written by women and for women would be successful at the box office. But in truth, Catherine Hardwicke broke records for women in the industry, winning the Guinness Book of World Records for biggest opening weekend by a female director at that time. success of Twilight is inevitably what led studios to back female-made projects like the Hunger Games and Twilight broke the mold 15 years before we ever had Barbie or the Eras Tour, which has subsequently proven that art targeted towards predominantly female audiences should not be stigmatized, because ladies, we love to spend and we will bring our bags. We will bring the bag. My biggest gripe, and I'm sure Catherine Hardwicke can agree, is that they moved on to the next Twilight movies without hiring another female director. It's a movie made for teenage girls. You'd think they would have a woman maybe driving that ship. I digress, because the gender of the director did not impact the success of the franchise at all. But it is because the movie had a niche target audience that was so wildly rejected by the masses despite its success at the box office. To translate, people made fun of Twilight because it was girls who loved Twilight. The same way people made fun of Justin Bieber because girls loved Justin Bieber. People made fun of One Direction because girls loved One Direction.
I don't want to talk about One Direction right now, or I will cry. Okay.
Anyways, no details go unnoticed by twihards, including the soundtrack, which we need to talk about the soundtrack. The intro to this song, Eyes on Fire, by Blue Foundation, will forever be tied to Twilight, directly linked to the nostalgia that it imbues. I want to note that this film, the first Twilight film, had the same sound supervisor as Grey's Anatomy, which makes perfect sense for some reason. I just feel like they fit in the same vein. Then there's Muse's supermassive black hole, which plays during the infamous baseball scene that has been recreated so many times online, also adding to the film's nostalgia for that era of indie music. I will say that the soundtracks for like at least the first 3 movies slapped. Like, I bought the CDs. They were so good, especially because I really thought I was cool and needed to know more about indie music at the time. So Twilight was my frame of reference. That brings me to the cast, though, because without this cast, would the movie even be memeable? Catherine Hardwicke said she had her eyes on Kristen Stewart from the start after seeing her in Into the Wild. It's undebatable that without Kristen Stewart, we wouldn't have half the Twilight memes that we have today. I don't think she's a particularly bad actress. I actually think she's incredible. If you haven't seen her in Spencer, where she plays Princess Diana, then you can't really, shut the fuck up. But I think she also made the perfect Bella Swan, because Bella herself is quite one note. She lacks dynamics within her personality, generally. Her main personality trait is her obsession with Edward Cullen and being an angsty teen.
As soon as I met her and went out there and spent that time that weekend, I thought, she's got it. The no bullshit. She's never going to overact. She's got that angst, she had everything. Of course, her face is luminous, and the camera, you can shoot anything, and she looks amazing.
Then when it comes to the casting of Edward, it made the most sense to pair Rob and Kristen together, since they shared a common appreciation for indie music and artists.
It totally makes sense, because they're both like so indie music, authors, writers, films. I mean, they had all that stuff together.
So the chemistry just worked. I will say that those two added to the indie angsty feeling of the movie, as well as just the unseriousness and the memification of it all. Watch any interview of Rob and Kristen talking about Twilight, even like in recent times, you just won't be disappointed. Especially Robert Pattinson. 0 fucks given. They're just both way too cool for these movies, and they know it. But it is the project that launched them into unbelievable careers. This is the only film in the saga with that Pacific Northwest blue tinty hue. It's the one with the lowest budget, an iconic soundtrack, and a female director. But without Catherine Hardwicke and the delightfully cringe-worthy cast to back her, Twilight would not encapsulate the qualities of a cult classic. In conclusion, I believe that Catherine Hardwicke, her quirky choices in production, design, and cast, the low budget, all played into a factor of why these movies have a cult following and a cult classic trajectory. But is it actually a cult classic? Or is it just the product of millennial nostalgia? Is nostalgia a key ingredient in creating a cult classic? Is all of this just semantics and a waste of time? Let me know what you think. In my opinion, I really do believe that Twilight is a cult classic because it won't be forgotten by our generation anytime soon. It's gonna be consistently rewatched and mocked with delight on a serious level that vampires were real. Vampires are real. I still think that vampires are real. Like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're a vampire. If you made it to the end, gold star for you. Seriously though, like and subscribe because it's free and it helps me out a lot. I'm a small baby creator. I'm very much on my come up right now. That's all I have to yap about today. Okay. I love you so much. I'm gonna go now. I'll see you in the next one. Okay. Bye!
Battle scars.
Oh my god, wait. Netflix gave me a mug, you guys. That's all. That's all. Okay.